It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. We are live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State, and we're having the crucial conversations that Erie needs. We're also live on Facebook and YouTube. And we're glad to have with us here from the Erie Philharmonic Orchestra, Tom Brooks. He's the interim executive director and also the director of the Erie Philharmonic Chorus. Thank you, Tom, so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Joel. It's nice to be here.
We are a family show. We like to hear origin stories. Where did you come up, and tell us how you got to this latest position here?
How long do you have? You mean where I grew up?
Yeah, where'd you
originally?
grow up? Yeah.
I grew up in Nashua, New Hampshire.
Okay, so you're New Hampshire.
I'm a New Hampshire boy.
A New Hampshire.
Hampshire, as they call it up there. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and when I grew up in Nashua, it was about 25,000. It's a much bigger city
Sure,
now.
sure. Wow.
It was a nice place to grow up, much like Erie is a nice place to grow up. You know?
Was New Hampshire, was it always the big deal every 4 years for the president?
Not
like when
then.
you were a kid?
No.
No, all right.
No, it was straight Republican then. Now it's
Ouch.
kind of balanced.
That's true, yeah.
And that's because of so many Massachusetts people thought it was so wonderful because there was no sales tax, there was no income tax, so they all moved to New Hampshire, and then they tried to change it.
You
know how
that's
it goes.
usually what
Yeah.
happens, right?
Yeah,
It's like all the
exactly.
New Yorkers moving to Florida.
You got it.
We're gonna make it like New York and
Right.
make Miami like Brooklyn. Anyway,
Yeah. Didn't want to live there, but when we moved
Right.
down there, we want to make it like where we just left. You know?
exactly.
Typical.
And what was your? It sounds like you have had a music career, right?
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I went after high school. I was very active in high school.
Okay.
With things. Then I went to undergraduate work at Houghton College.
You went to Houghton.
I did.
Oh, that's
did.
super cool.
I think it's Houghton University. Now, if
yeah,
I
it
get that
is.
right,
It
yeah.
is. I have a strong acquaintance with Houghton because my kids used to go up there for like science fairs, and I think some of my kids have won for like a speech thing. I love that. It's gorgeous there.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
really grown up. When I was there, it was a little bit rural at
Right.
times.
Wow.
But,
And they had
it
a
was
really
great
strong
education.
music.
Oh, it was a great music program
Yeah.
then with Charles Finney was heading it up. And he made things happen. It was a great place to be. It was great for me because there was nothing there but Houghton. So you could either practice or you could practice. One of the, or
There
you
were
could-
no distractions.
There were none.
Oh,
And
my
so
gosh.
I practiced, you know.
Yes. So what was your degree in at
It was,
undergrad?
I had a Bachelor of Music in Vocal Performance.
Vocal performance.
Right.
Wow, fantastic.
And then I I got into New England Conservatory kind of a backward way. I had studied at Chautauqua, so I knew Josephine Antoine. And I was going to go to the University of Illinois, but it was in the middle of the Vietnam conflict.
Yeah.
And so in the Vietnam conflict, they decided they were going to draft everybody, even though, because at that point you got out of school, you were draftable, period. All right. So I thought, well, I'm on my way. And they had made me group leader on the bus. I thought, oh, this is going to be really good. And I got all the way up there, and they said, you have to go see a specialist. So I went to a specialist. He said, you have a terrible back. Because I am missing a muscle in the back of my left arm. And he said, if anything would happen to you, you'll end up in a wheelchair, and we don't want to touch you with a 10-foot pole.
So they
So they flunked me.
wow.
But it was October. It was past when I could go to graduate school. So instead, I went down and studied with Frederick Yeagle, who had been a Metropolitan Opera star at New England Conservatory, and he liked me, so he took me and said, I want you to apply. So I applied at New England Conservatory and got in there
Fantastic.
on a full scholarship.
Now, where's that located?
It's in Boston.
Right in
downtown
Boston,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was a great education for me.
Sure.
Again, it was just the right place at the right time.
And you stayed in Boston that whole time? then?
No, yeah, I did during that time. But what I did after
Okay.
is I had some sinus problems. I had to have surgery in the Mass Eye and Ear Infirmary, and they told me you really can't do that much for 6 months. So Susan, my wife, and I came out here to visit because her grandmother had died, and I figured while I was here, I'll walk around and hand out resumes. Well, I got a job at First Presbyterian Church down here off Perry Square.
Yes.
So we thought, okay, well, seeing she was supposed to have our first son in October, we thought, well, we'll move to Erie. So that's what we did, and we lived here for 3 years.
Wow.
And then I had studied summers at the Hart School of Music in Hartford, Connecticut, and went up there and got taken as a doctoral student with what they called a teaching fellowship. Mm-hmm. So I was a teacher. At the end of that year, I decided, well, you know what? I think I've got all my classwork done. I'm going to leave. I told the dean that. I'm going to go out now. It's a perfect time to get in the market. You know, they don't have to pay you for the doctorate, but you got all the knowledge, right?
Right.
And he said, no, you aren't. Yeah. He said, you come in tomorrow morning. We've all talked this over. We're going to keep you right here on the faculty. Come in tomorrow morning. I'm going to give you a contract.
Oh, my goodness.
So that's what happened.
So you ended up in Hartford.
So we were in Hartford for 10 years. I taught at the Hart School of Music. Great experience for me. I was on the conducting staff, did a lot of opera, did a lot of major choral works, taught a lot of classes, did all kinds of things. And couldn't finish my doctorate because I was on the graduate committee. It's pretty hard to say, well, I'd like to ask me a question and go to the other side of the table,
right.
you know? And at that time...
Can we bring in a ring or somewhere?
Yeah. So at that time, somebody said to me, why the heck are you going to go in and write a dissertation? You have the job everybody wants. Mm-hmm. So I just went with that, and frankly, it was the right move.
Wow.
Because having been there with the experiences I had while I was there, some of which were touring with America's Youth in Concert for 4 of the 10 years in Europe with the best high school kids in the country. If you weren't in All-State, you couldn't even audition to get in the group.
Wow.
And, you know, doing a lot of opera and things like that down there around the New York area, it just made my career.
So to this day, you're ABD?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Twice.
Wow.
So I'm there 10 years, and then I decide, well, you know what? There was a reason I decided I would leave, but I won't discuss that in the air because it was nothing bad except that I was dealing with an organization I didn't realize I was dealing with called the Mafia.
Oh,
but we won't go there.
Yeah, we don't.
Anyway, I didn't know I was there, so I thought I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. So I went to Texas Tech to work with a friend of mine, and while I was there, I thought, you know, it's not a very hard load. I could do a PhD while I'm here. So I got all the hours plus 30 with the PhD, got 4 chapters done of my dissertation, and got a good job in Chicago, so I figured, screw it.
So tell me, like Texas Tech had deep music down there?
Oh, yeah, it's a very good program.
You just wouldn't think of a text, you know, like...
It's first rate.
Yeah.
It really is.
Wow.
It's a great...
And you were staying in the vocal side of things, or did you switch?
I was into conducting by then. Because by the time I went to Hart, you know, I got in as a singer and conductor because I started the Mercyhurst College Choir here. And they were interested in me as a conductor, so I went there. And fortunately, when I went to Hart, I had an opportunity to study with some wonderful people by mistake. The way it happened was... One night I did a concert, and the dean introduced me that evening to the board of trustees as their new Wunderkind. And I went home and I said to Susan, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Right.
I mean, I don't really know what I'm doing. I really hadn't studied it that much. She said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm scared to death. So I went up to a studio of an older colleague, Vytautas Marijošas, who was a phenomenal conductor. Wow. He had been in Europe during the Nazi regime. He got locked up for hiding his orchestra people, came to the States. You know, I always said to Susan, if I knew half of what he'd forgotten, I'd probably be a genius. And I asked him, I said, would you take me on as a student? And he said, well, my colleague, you know, there is no reason to do this. I said, oh, yes, there is. Please, would you take me on as a student? So we worked together for 3.5 years. He never charged me $1. Isn't that amazing? Learned a lot from him about real technique on how to handle, you know, choirs and orchestras or opera pits, because he had done a lot of that too.
I love how you said it that way. Real technique on how to handle I mean, because that's well beyond keeping the beat and calling for the sections that come in. You're handling people.
You handle people, and you have to have a very clean technique with the stick. There shouldn't be any flopping around.
Oh, yeah.
You have to really know how to do that properly, and he was a stickler for that, let me tell you.
So when you were in the Metro, I consider Connecticut part of the Metro.
Right.
Any run-ins with Bernstein and, the New York Phil and all that stuff?
No, not with those people.
Because that's kind of the era where, like, all the... Because you were kind of hippie aged,
Yeah,
weren't they
had
hanging?
longer hair then too.
But I mean he was up in what's his summer home for the New York.
He was up at Tanglewood.
Tanglewood, yeah.
No, I didn't do that because I was always working in the summer. I mean, if I wasn't doing the America's Youth in Concert tour to Europe, I was working at University of Wisconsin in the summer clinics, and then I'd have the Heart summer clinics, and I just was busy all summer doing that.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Sure. Couldn't afford to leave town.
Right. So Texas, and then Chicago. I went to Texas,
then I went to Chicago.
What was it in Chicago for you?
I was there to teach voice and do the choral program, and I was doing guest conducting with the Chicago Chamber Orchestra.
Nice.
And we lasted there a year. I went up there to help the chancellor build a $100 million performing arts center in downtown Chicago. And we got in a lawsuit with one of the other universities that didn't want us to do it.
Yeah.
And they said, we'll drag it out in court for 10 years. And I thought, really, I'm out of here. And at that time, they recruited me at Gordon College and offered Susan and I both full-time professorships to be at Gordon.
Back to Boston.
Yeah, and Susan always wanted to go back to Boston because when we were in Hartford, we'd go up to Boston quite a bit. And so we took it. And spent 25 years there.
This is the college. Is it affiliated with the seminary?
It was at one time.
At one time,
it had
Gordon Conwell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And they wanted someone to build that program. It was in shambles, and so I was recruited, frankly, by the Board of Trustees.
Wow.
And with the mandate, fix it.
Huh.
So we spent 25 years there, and I did a lot of outside work besides while I was there. I conducted a Portland opera in Maine with Bruce Hangen, who was a great pal of mine. And then I would do Commonwealth Opera out in the western part of the state, and did North Shore Light Opera Company and Light Opera down in the Sound, and did a lot of freelancing. Also conducted some chamber choirs, the last one, Lyricora, which was a really good group, which I did for 10 years. And then co-founded with a friend of mine the Salzburg Institute of Religion, the Arts, and Culture.
Well, that's interesting.
And so we ran that for several years with students going over, and it was between Vienna and Salzburg. We would spend a week in Vienna and then about 3 or 4 weeks in residence in Salzburg. It was a wonderful experience, really.
Sounds like it. Wow. What's Boston like as a music hub?
Great. It's wonderful.
So vocalists, cellists,
everything,
violinists,
everything.
They can full time live in their music. I mean,
well, they hope so.
Well, I mean, I didn't know what kind of critical mass you need to be. Hey, I'm a full time union violinist, and
Well, you have to do a lot of freelancing. There's a lot
what does
of
that mean?
Playing maybe 3 or 4 different orchestras.
Okay.
Where you
which is kind of typical, right? I mean,
in some ways, yeah. Unless you're in something like the Boston Symphony where you have a full-time contract,
right?
So
that's very rare these days, right?
The
full
rare
time for all of our tastes.
Yeah, but it was a wonderful environment to be in with great musicians and great colleagues to work with, and we put together a really good program up there. Yeah. And it was a good experience. And then we decided to retire, so we came to Gordon. Came to Erie. Came to Erie. I mean, yeah.
I love that Erie is a choice as a retirement community. I think it is.
It's a wonderful city to live in. I think people that are always saying to me, well, I will leave Erie. Oh, well, I used to hear this from friends when they're going to lengthen the runway. We'd come out in the summers, and what are they going to do that for? Who'd want to come to Erie anyway? And I always wanted to say, so why are you here?
Right.
But it is a really good city. I know everybody thinks they want to go to the big city, but then when you've been there, I can remember at one point sitting in a traffic jam on a Sunday afternoon thinking, I got to retire. This is nuts. You know?
Enough of the big dig. We've got to.
Yeah, you got it.
We're talking to Tom Brooks. He is the interim director at the Erie Philharmonic. I don't think I'll be playing any orchestral bumpers, but YouTube will have to suffice here. It's Talk Erie. Stay with it. Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. It's a Wednesday edition. We're talking about the Erie Philharmonic. Tom Brooks is with us here. He is the interim director. And Tom, I want to ask you, when you came back to as Erie as a retirement, did you anticipate, having a lot of work with the Phil or the music scene here in Erie?
No, actually, what I was doing was I came here and retired, but I would go back and forth to Boston. I was still doing Lyricora. Mm-hmm. So, that gave me something to do, supposedly, in retirement.
Right.
I wasn't super busy doing that, but, I'd go back maybe one weekend every 4 or 5 weekends,
Sure.
out of every 4 or 5. And I enjoyed that. And Susan was happy with that. Mm-hmm. She didn't like me to go necessarily, but,
Right.
I used to do it, and I kept my hand going.
Yeah.
And then someone said to me, you really ought to join the Board of Governors here. We could really use your help. You've done a lot of administrative work. You've traveled a lot. You know music well. And I thought, no, I don't think I want to do that. I came here to retire. I'm done with that. And then Susan and I sat on the porch and said, well, I guess, if we're going to live here, we ought to make some contribution. So I said, okay, I'll join the Board of Governors. Well, that was it. That was the beginning of doing more and more.
Wow.
Which, frankly, I've enjoyed.
Yeah.
I
so
do love this
you ended up
community.
becoming the Philharmonic chorus director,
Right.
correct? How long ago was that?
5, 6 years
Has
ago,
it been?
I guess.
Yeah. Wow. And then more recently, you are the interim director, executive director, which is kind of running the whole back office. Can you explain to our listeners kind of the division of duties at the Philharmonic? Because people know Daniel Meyer. He's got his role as musical director.
Right.
So
he's the musical director and the artistic director. And what I basically do is run the office and the business side of it. Mm-hmm. So I'm the guy who's looking to get money from you.
Right, sure. Yeah.
It's what it amounts to in a sense. But, someone has to spin the vision for the organization, and talk about what the organization is really doing for Erie
Yes.
and for the community, while Daniel is worried about getting the orchestra together and picking the programming and everything, which, by the way, he does a wonderful job of picking program for this, especially for this community.
Well, and we were saying, how it's very rare to have full-time musicians, and so people should understand that when you are, when you have everybody has a contract, right, at the Phil.
Yes.
But it's a part-time contract,
Right.
and we could have players from the Cleveland Phil, or from, well, maybe not the Cleveland Phil, but certainly from Chautauqua, from other parts south. And
We have them come in from Buffalo. We have them come in from Pittsburgh. We have them come in from Akron and Canton. We have some players actually come as far as the other side of Chicago.
seriously, to come
We
for the
get
weekend.
very good players here. You have to
Wow.
understand, this orchestra is an astounding orchestra.
Yeah.
No, I know. I'm supposed to say that as the executive director, but one of the things that attracted me back to Erie was the feeling that I was not going to be losing a lot musically.
That's
by
really
being
cool.
here.
Wow.
Susan and I, in fact, came out in the fall of 2006. We had a sabbatical, and we took from the beginning of May all the way through December and stayed here and went to the Phil and decided this would work out okay. We were all right with this. This orchestra now is of course a fully professional orchestra. There are very few people that live here in that sense. They all come in. They love to play in Erie.
That's
They
amazing.
love to play here because it's a good organization. They love the conductor. How could you not love the conductor?
Right.
They love the hall. They love the audience in Erie because Erie audiences come. Many halls only fill up to 65%. We have sellouts or almost sellout on every single concert.
Yeah, it's like a knife fight to get a ticket. You know?
Yeah, good.
No,
And-
it's astounding.
Yeah, but it's true, and because it's full, and the audience is so responsive to what they're doing.
Yeah.
They say, "This is great. We love to play here. It's like we're appreciated."
Yeah.
So here's an audience now. Here's Erie that's actually attracting people because of who we are, which is kind of neat.
And,
And-
yeah, and if you like the program, again, you can make a weekend out of it, and people do. They'll come up
yeah.
from Franklin, get a hotel room, watch the Phil.
I've
get
had people
dinner
sit next to me that come from Cleveland.
to come see
And
our
I say, "You're
shows.
here to." "Oh yeah, this is a great orchestra, and we pay a lot less money than to go to the Cleveland Symphony,
Which
right?
which has a
And-
record contract
which
and the
has-
whole
right.
bit.
But we
you know.
pay a lot of money there. We pay
Yeah.
less money here. We get a wonderful concert, and we have money left over to stay in a good hotel, have dinners, and drive back later. Now that's pretty
That's
remarkable when you think about it.
We're talking to Tom Brooks, so we got to take our bottom of the hour news break here. Stay with us. It's Talk Erie. You've got Talk Erie on your radio, 105.9 WZTE. Also live on Facebook and YouTube. We're talking the Erie Philharmonic today, and with us is Tom Brooks. He is the interim executive director for the orchestra, and really doing it up. I got to ask you about like programming decisions and stuff, because I think it's really interesting. Like, what was it, just last month or something that they did a Star Wars night or something like that?
Right, absolutely.
How does that all come about? And are those like packages that you can buy where they send you the score and the movie rights and all that stuff?
Oh, sure, yeah. You have to. You can get different packages for all kinds of things, especially in the pops area.
Yeah.
When you get into the classical, the symphonic thing, well, then you're into standard repertoire, which you go out and you get yourself the scores, or if it's contemporary, then you have to get the rights to it. And
right. Else. Okay. But for like that to be able to display an old movie, right? Or that's got to be kind of a big deal.
It is a big deal. I got to tell you the honest truth that if you have never seen the movie with the orchestra playing the entire soundtrack live underneath it, you've missed something.
Yeah.
Because people came out of that saying to me, "Oh my gosh, that was incredible! Yeah. I've never heard anything like that in my life."
Wow.
And next year, it's not going to be Star Wars. It's going to be Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is another great score underneath it, right?
John Williams is just going to the bank with buckets and buckets of cash.
He's a great composer. He really is.
Wow.
So to hear an orchestra live underneath that, where you actually feel the emotion, and see, you can watch the orchestra on the screens right above them. Mm-hmm. It's a great experience. People should never miss that.
A couple of years ago, we went to one that was the Knights, and so it was Sir Elton, Sir Paul, and I can't remember the third one.
Right.
And they brought in actual guest singers.
Yeah, right.
And it was fabulous, but it was great how that all worked out. Now, of course, on the symphonic side of things, you love to get that specialty pianist, or like, what is it, Milos that was on?
Milos was here, yeah.
Yeah, with the guitar.
He was amazing, yeah.
I didn't get to see him. Did he play 12-string, 6-string, both, or what?
Just standard acoustic guitar.
Standard acoustic guitar,
yeah,
okay.
It was, he's amazing.
Yeah.
But, you never think of a guitar, you think of strumming a guitar.
Right.
These guys play it like it's a virtuoso, well, it is a virtuoso instrument, and historically, it was a virtuoso instrument. And so they have completely brought all of this back, and he's probably one of the very top guitarists for the last decade.
Wow.
And a wonderful person, by the way. He was so nice to work with. Just a real pleasure.
We're seeing now, too, that some of the pop stars are starting to get involved with classical music, right? Where, Lady Gaga is the one that comes to mind, but I think even I'm blowing it, but that just kind of there's like this this kind of amalgam, or this intermingling of kind of pop culture and the classic culture, and some purists would say we can't have that, right?
Yeah, but there's always been a certain amount of crossing the lines, and I think you see this today because I think culture has changed quite a bit. Mm-hmm. If you think about where it was in the past, artists were always the ones who are kind of bohemians. They hope they had enough to eat this week, that kind of thing. But that has all changed. If you look at the culture today, it's not that any of us are, well, most of us anyway, myself included. I'm not wealthy, but I'm not worried about where I'm going to sleep tonight. I don't worry about that there'll be heat in my house. Right. I don't worry about the fact that I have a car to drive. I don't worry about whether I'm going to have a meal tonight. Yeah. We don't have the worries that they had at one point.
Wow.
And I think that changes how people now look at the arts totally. So you have sort of a popular side to the arts, but you also have the historical and the high art side to the arts. And I think more and more people are actually enjoying that. I heard someone say that the average age of people now going to the Pops in Boston is about 52, 53, if I remember the figures right. I might be off
Is
a little
that
bit.
starting to come down then?
Well, the symphonic side is in the 40s. It's 45.
Really?
So younger people are going to the symphonic side than
Yes.
are going to the Pops,
Oh
which
my
I find
gosh,
isn't that interesting.
That is so interesting.
You know, and even my cousin, before he passed away, he had just listened to rock and pop music all the time. He finally said to me, I'm starting to listen to classical music. I've heard all of this for 40 years. Now I want to do something else.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, I think sometimes that is the reason why for years we've said, well, it's all the white hairs that go to the symphony, you know. And they were saying that at the turn of the century. I'm
Well, I was
talking
gonna
about
say,
the
you know,
20th century.
right, there
You
was
think
a-
by now they had all died.
Right.
But
there was a point that Tchaikovsky was a pop artist.
Right.
You know, when you think
Sure.
about it, you know, when he came to, what was it, America in the 1910s or something like that.
sure, and
I
you know,
mean,
so
his new-
so when you think about it, why would you not cross the line and enjoy both sides of this?
Yes.
There's so much for us to explore in our lifetime. Why stay in one channel only?
There's a thing, and again, you came up in education. There's a thing about music appreciation, though, that needs to be taught. You know, just like we have to teach the trades again
Yeah.
in the schools, we have to teach the arts and music appreciation in the schools. I'll never forget when my brother bought, you know, an LP of Tchaikovsky's Fourth Symphony, and I just fell in love as a 12-year-old or something like that.
Yeah.
And I never looked back,
Right.
you know?
Well, I remember, I'll say it wasn't right after the Civil War. It was, but at any rate, I remember lying on the living room rug on a sort of late winter day, and the sun is coming in. It's a Sunday afternoon, and my father had the radio on back when they used to do these symphony hours like Newberry and Woolworth and all those people, and listening, I think it was to a Brahms symphony,
Wow.
which I had never heard before, and
Sure.
he was listening to it, and I fell in love with it. I just thought, that is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I still remember that from, I must have been 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember the color of the rug where I was. It's as if it's just as alive today as it was then to me.
And then again, like you were talking about the pop, you know, the pop affecting or you're redirecting to the classical. How many kids, you know, learned, our age from Bugs Bunny, you know, learning.
Killed a rabbit. Killed a rabbit.
Well, and I'm thinking about Ocean's 11 and what is it, Debussy or Debussy? I don't know how to pronounce, but no, Claire de Lune, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it.
Sure.
I mean, it's just.
And it's beautiful music.
Yeah.
Period. But I think that's why we run at the Philharmonic. Half our series is pops, half our series is classical. And we sort of try to encourage people as much as we can. Hey, try both sides of this.
Right.
You know, and you can buy tickets strictly to the pops part of it or strictly to the symphonic side, or you can do a mix and match.
Right.
And get a series that way and get a discount as a mix and match by looking at the program. What would I like to hear?
It's pretty remarkable, too, what the Philharmonic did during COVID in working with WQLN and getting these performances out there for the public. Like, the music didn't stop, even though everything was shut down, you know. It's crazy.
Well, I think Steve Weiser was the executive director then, and I think he did a brilliant job of crisis management. I mean, we're in crisis. There were many orchestras that laid off everybody but maybe 3 people, and that was the executive director, the musical director, and maybe the development officer. And everybody else was gone. Orchestra wasn't hired. Here, everybody worked the entire time. If you had a contract, it was honored. Only in Erie. And you know, the fact of the matter was that people were calling New York Union and saying, we don't know what to do. And they were saying, go find out what Erie, Pennsylvania is doing because they figured it out. And we became sort of the hallmark for that.
Wow.
And we don't want to let go of that. Right now, we're working on all kinds of programs, some of which I can talk about and some of which I can't, right now, but that are going to sort of replicate the same thing. We're going to try to bring you music all summer, and we're going to try to put on all kinds of programs that are going to go outside of Erie
Fantastic.
to a much bigger thing. And I think it's important because you can't look to, in my view, you cannot look at a Philharmonic orchestra anymore as its own little club. The question is, what does it do for you? And what it does is it makes your community look more sophisticated. And we should be proud that we have a very excellent orchestra that is kind of the cultural leader in this community, and that orchestra is going to now get outside of Erie, and people are going to know about Erie for its orchestral prowess as opposed to only know us for snow.
And now that sounds amazing, and what an opportunity for your players to kind of let's bring this show on the road. I mean, to be able to bring the brand out from beyond just our local.
And the players love it here. They really do love this. I've had a meeting with them, and they were so enthusiastic about playing here. You think, well, okay, they're out-of-towners, and, they're union, they're just dry, they don't care. This orchestra is quite the opposite.
Wow.
They are a really, really good group of people. Wonderful people.
Talk about the concertmaster, who, again, is kind of the lead musician next to the conductor. What's the story?
Well, the concertmaster is kind of the leader of the orchestra, but in one sense.
Okay.
In that he leads the string section. So he often takes care of a lot of the string problems immediately.
String problems?
Yeah, sure. You have bowing. Everybody has to be on the same bow. They're all going down and coming up at the same time. In that section.
Of course. Okay.
Because it has to phrase. You have to phrase it all the same. And so, he can look after that. Sometimes he will mark all the scores ahead of time, and then we take them in the office, and he'll mark a score, and then we'll copy that into everybody's part before they get it. So there's a lot of work to go on. We have a person that works as a full-time librarian, just doing that, marking all the scores before rehearsals. If there's any cuts or anything, they're all marked in. There's no question about what's going on. You can't afford to lose 1 minute of rehearsal time. So you get everything prepared as much as you possibly can. And we have a business manager that works exclusively for the orchestra, does a great job. He'll spend 50, 60 hours making sure every detail of everything, how the stage is set up, everything is taken care of.
Wow. What is the name of our concertmaster these days?
We are actually in the midst of auditioning a couple.
We are.
At the end of the year, we'll announce who the decision is.
Okay.
But we've got some
realize
wonderful
that.
players that have come in.
Yeah.
And we're, part of it is finding who actually can work with this orchestra, how really good they are as a leader of the string section, and then how they mesh with the maestro.
Right.
Because really, you have to be able to get along with a maestro.
100%.
Yeah. And some maestros are just cantankerous as all get out. Daniel Meyer is not.
He's not. No,
he's one of the most wonderful people I've met in a long time.
He's just what I like about him is that he has like hometown values. Like he understands his context. And getting out there, he shows up on television. He shows up at the things. I mean, it's just
he cares about this orchestra.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
they know.
And again, we went a while there without a long-term maestro. I mean, he's been committed for quite a while. We want somebody that wants to be here for sure.
He wants to be here.
Yeah,
and with the plans that we have coming up. He'll want to stay. He does. He's in the middle of it all.
Good. Talk about your corporate support and some of that stuff. How is that hanging in? Again, when you're on the upswing, everybody wants to join on a rocket ship. You know.
Right. Well, we are very well supported here in Erie. Now, I won't tell you that we don't worry about it a little bit because in the arts, as you know, you can never feel secure.
Yeah.
You always are working to do it. But why we're coming up with new programs is that we don't want to stay stagnant. When you're in the arts, If you try to stay stagnant, you're going to slide back. We are not going to slide back. And so we are coming up with programs that we think will help us with even more business support and donor support, because people will begin to see this is good for Erie. Erie is trying to crawl out of being a Rust Belt city. We haven't been a Rust Belt city for probably 10, 12 years, but people think we are.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is to change the image of what you have in Erie. And the Philharmonic is dedicated to helping to make that change, for people to see this is a cultural little community. This is the kind of place you ought to be. This is the place you want to visit.
Absolutely.
And that's what it needs to be, and that's what we're doing. So we've had good support. We're always looking for more support, because we want to grow, and we want to grow our budget to be a bigger and better orchestra.
You consider, we talk a bit about, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, probably more like 50, we had a lot of corporate headquarters here. It would be easy to make one phone call to a CEO and a nice big check gets struck, right? That's harder to do now. There's very few banks that are headquartered here. There's very few big, business corporations.
Well, that's why
you guys are stable financially.
Because what you try to do is you try to get a lot of people to help you.
Yes.
What you want to do is get people involved.
Get the
people tend to
quantity.
Support what they have an opportunity to help create. Yeah. And as they see it created, then they want to support it.
Is there a philosophy too? You talked about getting the music out there. I mean, we've kind of undergone this whole street art renaissance where you can, on the street, the thing that controls the street lights. There's a picture, some art there, or there's the fish, and you've seen the frogs and all that stuff. Is there an equivalent of that with the Phil or with music like that, live music?
Yeah, in some ways there is, but we do it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
We're trying to give you the experience economy in a sense, and I'll tell you why. We have really stressed the educational aspect of what we're doing. So we are trying to support our music teachers in the area. We run their in-service days, which we put together for them. We have a junior Philharmonic orchestra where kids can play in their own Philharmonic. You understand that right now in Erie County, I don't think there's maybe only 2 or 3 high school orchestras left. That's it. Wow. They're gone.
That's amazing.
So we provide that, and we provide for out of region. There are kids who drive 50, 60 miles to get here. And that's an opportunity. We now have a whole junior choir program going that goes from 3rd grade to 12th grade. And the upper level kids, what we're trying to do is teach them how to sing. Not just teach choral music, teach them how to sing. Yeah. We have in-school programs that we do where we send people in residence for 30, 60 days at a time. We go for special events to schools and what we call petting zoos where the kids can see all of the instruments and try to play them and all. These are all the things that we're doing in the community. You can say, well, okay, we see the art. Well, visual art you see, music you hear. And so we are doing that through these kinds of programs.
That's tremendous.
That we think is going to make a huge difference in the fabric of the community. While we bring in a professional orchestra, the rest of the organization works in the fabric of this community, growing it itself.
Tom Brooks is with us. We just got a minute or two, Tom. Let's talk about performances you got coming up and maybe season announcements and things. Are we at like mid-season right now? Are we at the end of the season?
We're at the tail end.
Yeah.
On, let's see here. On May 3rd and 4th, we do the music of the Beatles.
Nice.
That'll be a great Pops night.
Sure.
And then on the following weekend, on the 10th, we're going to do a big production of Verdi's Requiem, which is going to be, if you've never heard the Verdi Requiem, you ought to hear it. It is just an astounding piece. Wow. And then next year's series are out. You can find out all the information if you get on eriephil.org. You'll see everything that is going to be there next year. You can order tickets online. You can come into the office. You can call. You'll find that our people are very, very helpful in helping to get you situated with exactly the program you need.
Yeah, I mean, to wrap it up, I mean, really, the Philharmonic is on such a strong footing right now that it's looking for new opportunities, isn't it?
Exactly.
We're in an expansion mode.
We're in an expansion and growth mode.
Wow.
And the growth mode that we will have will be the growth mode that will also help Erie be in a growth mode. We are Erie's orchestra, and we will promote Erie while we're doing it.
Beautiful. Tom Brooks, the interim executive director for the Erie Philharmonic, also directs the Philharmonic Chorus. If you want to audition for the chorus, when is that? When's your next audition?
If you look on the website, we run mostly 4 or 5 times through the summer, but the next one is June 7th. Saturday, June 7th is an audition day.
Yeah, if you know how to use that diaphragmatic breathing.
Sign up.
Thanks, Tom, for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks so much, Joel.
You got it. It is 4:55.